Today, Cryptocurrency Academy is going to tell you the origin story of Bitcoin, why the first cryptocurrency in the world appeared, and what kind of chaos gave birth to it. This is not a get-rich-quick story, and it is not investment advice. This is a story about how trust collapsed, how a financial system disappointed millions of people, and why Bitcoin was created as a quiet but powerful act of resistance. This is Crypto Explained, and to understand Bitcoin, we have to go back to a time when the world stopped trusting almost everyone. This video is not about prices, not about charts, and not about miracle promises. This video is about the real reason Bitcoin appeared. In 2008, the global financial system fell into a severe crisis. Major banks collapsed, stock markets crashed, and millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, and the savings they spent their entire lives building. While ordinary people suffered the consequences, governments used taxpayer money to rescue the very financial institutions that caused the disaster. The message was simple: if you are big enough, you get saved, and if you are just a regular person, you are on your own. Trust in banks, trust in governments, and trust in the traditional money system began to break apart fast. That is the ground Bitcoin grew from, and that is what Crypto Explained is really about. In that moment, a name appeared on the internet with no face, no biography, and no confirmed identity. That name was Satoshi Nakamoto. No one knows whether Satoshi was one person or a group, where they came from, or whether they are still around. But the most important thing was never the person behind the name. The most important thing was the idea the name delivered. That idea was a peer-to-peer digital money system with no need for a middleman bank, no need for government permission, and no dependence on trusting human institutions. It would run on math and cryptography instead. For the first time in modern history, money was being proposed as a system that could function without a central authority. That is the heart of this story, and that is what makes Crypto Explained different from hype. In October 2008, Satoshi published a 9-page technical paper describing how Bitcoin could work. It did not advertise, it did not ask for investment, and it did not promise profits. It explained, in a cold and logical way, how a decentralized monetary system could exist. Underneath the technical design was a challenge aimed at the entire global financial system. In January 2009, the first block of the Bitcoin network was mined. Inside that block was a message tied to the United Kingdom preparing a second bank bailout. This was not a random detail. It was a clear statement about why Bitcoin existed. Bitcoin was born as a direct response to the failure of the traditional financial system. This is Crypto Explained, and this is the ideological root of Bitcoin. In the early years, Bitcoin was almost worthless. There were no major exchanges, no real market, and almost no one treated it as real money. The people involved were mostly programmers and cryptography enthusiasts. They mined Bitcoin on personal computers and sent it to each other to test the system. One of the most famous early transactions was spending 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas. Bitcoin did not grow fast. It grew slowly and quietly. There was no media campaign, no wave of mass speculation, and no serious attention from governments. Bitcoin survived because it solved a real problem, moving value without a third party. And every durable revolution starts quietly like that. A core feature of Bitcoin is a fixed supply. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. In a world where money can be printed endlessly, the idea of absolutely scarce money was something new. That philosophy is what made Bitcoin a potential threat to the existing monetary system. The issue was never only the price. The issue was the idea, and this is where Crypto Explained matters. From 2009 to 2010, Bitcoin faced technical bugs and moments where it looked like the system could fail. But each time, the small community around it fixed problems and kept the network alive. There was no central leader and no single party controlling the system, yet the Bitcoin network continued to run. That became the foundation for Bitcoin's survival story. Bitcoin was not created to make people rich overnight. It was created because the old system made too many people lose trust. It came from anger, from loss, and from a desire to control personal finance again. This is Crypto Explained, and if you do not understand that, you will never understand Bitcoin properly, whether you buy it or not. The next part of the story will show the shocks, crashes, and trials Bitcoin had to face in order to keep going. If part 1 was the moment Bitcoin was born from the collapse of trust, then part 2 is when Bitcoin stepped into the real world, and the real world hit it hard. This is the stage where Bitcoin starts to have a price, starts to gain real users, and also starts to attract real enemies. When something unknown stops being unknown, when something worthless stops being worthless, everything changes immediately. Crypto Explained has to say this clearly because the moment Bitcoin became tradable, two opposing forces showed up at the same time. People who believed in financial freedom and people who wanted to exploit it for fast money or shady purposes. Bitcoin did not choose either side. Bitcoin simply ran. And once it ran inside the real world, trouble started arriving in waves. Around 2011, Bitcoin started getting mentioned more often. Some people saw a technology opportunity, some saw a speculative opportunity, and some saw a way to do things the banking system would block at the door. You have to understand the mindset back then. Bitcoin felt strange and new. The law had not caught up, and the media was both curious and scared. Wild price swings made newcomers feel like they were strapped into a roller coaster. Up fast, down fast, rumors moving faster than facts. People bought because a friend talked about it. People sold because they panicked. People held because they believed. And some people simply waited for the right moment to scam. Crypto Explained emphasizes that Bitcoin entered its teenage years through chaos, not stability. In that same period, Bitcoin got tied to a highly sensitive phrase, black markets. Many people first heard about Bitcoin not because of blockchain technology, but because it was used as a payment method on illegal marketplaces. The most famous story was Silk Road, a place the media later described as an underground market on the internet. The key point here is public perception. People looked at Bitcoin and concluded it was a tool for crime. But Crypto Explained needs to separate the tool from the use. A neutral tool can be used for bad purposes, just like cash. The problem was that when Bitcoin was still small, that image stuck hard, triggering social backlash and pushing governments to treat Bitcoin as a threat that needed control. Once authorities began to intervene, the story moved to a new level. Law enforcement investigated, tracked, and arrested people. Many assumed that shutting down an underground market would kill Bitcoin. But Bitcoin was not a company. It had no headquarters to seal. It had no CEO to arrest and be done with it. What you could do was arrest people misusing it, while the network itself kept running. This became one of the first survival lessons. Bitcoin does not disappear just because a major case hits the headlines. Crypto Explained shows the difference between an application and the foundation beneath it. An application can be destroyed, while the foundation survives. That reality forced many people to rethink Bitcoin's durability. Then came something many people paid less attention to than crime, but that turned out to be far more important. Exchanges. When Bitcoin had a price and people wanted to buy and sell, exchanges became the gateway. And once there is a gateway, someone controls the gate. Early exchanges appeared fast, often with loose operations, weak management, poor security, and users who were naive. People treated leaving coins on an exchange as if it were as safe as a bank. But banks have insurance, oversight, and legal frameworks. Many crypto exchanges back then had none of that, only promises. Crypto Explained needs to say it directly. This period created a dangerous habit, trusting a new middleman, even though Bitcoin was created to reduce dependence on middlemen. And then the biggest blow to community trust hit: Mt. Gox. At one point, Mt. Gox handled a huge share of Bitcoin trading worldwide. Many people saw it as the heart of the market, but when the heart fails, the whole body goes into shock. Stories spread like wildfire about missing Bitcoin, weak controls, and users unable to withdraw. When Mt. Gox collapsed, the damage was not just the number of Bitcoins lost. The deeper impact was psychological. People learned a brutal truth. You can believe in Bitcoin, But if you deposit Bitcoin into a bad place, you can still lose everything. Crypto Explained treats Mt. Gox as a scar that shaped the entire industry. After Mt. Gox, the media launched what felt like a burial campaign for Bitcoin. Articles declaring Bitcoin dead appeared again and again. People panic sold. Newcomers lost money, felt bitter, and retold the story as a warning. But something strange happened. While the price fell and trust shook, the Bitcoin network kept running. Blocks were still mined, transactions were still confirmed. Nobody could turn it off. This is the moment Crypto Explained wants you to remember. Bitcoin can be hurt by the market, but it does not die the way a company goes bankrupt. It behaves more like a natural system. Storms can hit it, but it can survive as long as people keep maintaining it. The year 2012 brought an event many newcomers overlook, but it is extremely important for the long-term journey. The first halving. The mining reward was cut in half. It sounds simple, but it carried a powerful message. Bitcoin's supply is programmed to become scarcer over time. This is not a promise from a politician. It is a rule written into code. Crypto Explained highlights that halving makes Bitcoin fundamentally different from fiat money systems. When traditional money supply can be expanded whenever needed, Bitcoin tightens its issuance on a fixed schedule. For those who believe in the scarcity story, this is a strength. For those who fear volatility, it is another reason to stay cautious. From 2013 to 2014, Bitcoin went through strong rallies and sharp crashes. Every time it rose, people called it the future. Every time it fell, people called it a bubble. The emotional cycle repeated: hope, greed, excitement, panic, depression. But at the same time, something quieter was happening. Infrastructure improved, wallets improved, knowledge improved, and security lessons got carved into the culture. After each crash, the people who remained were usually more serious. Crypto Explained sees this period as natural selection. Those looking for shortcuts left, while those who truly cared stayed and kept building. In that same era, the phrase "not your keys, not your coins" turned into a painful lesson. People started to understand the difference between truly holding Bitcoin and merely owning a number on a company's screen. Bitcoin was designed so you could hold power yourself, but humans love convenience, and convenience often brings risk. Crypto Explained says it plainly. Many disasters did not come from Bitcoin itself. They came from how people used Bitcoin. The moment you hand control to someone else, you recreate the same problem Bitcoin was designed to solve. That is why, after Mt. Gox, self-custody culture, cold wallets, and security habits spread much more widely. By 2015 and 2016, Bitcoin entered a phase that looked quieter, but was actually a phase of accumulation and strengthening. Price action was not as insane as before, but developers, miners, and related businesses matured. Many people left the space because they were bored or burned, but those who stayed focused on making the system more stable, more usable, and more resilient. Crypto Explained wants you to see this. Sometimes real growth is not about price going up. It is about the network continuing to operate, continuing to attract builders, and continuing to prove it was not just a temporary craze. So what is the conclusion of Part 2? Bitcoin pushed past its early years through non-stop shocks, being branded with a bad reputation, facing crackdowns, being betrayed by exchanges, getting crushed by the market, and being declared dead hundreds of times by the press. But after all of that, Bitcoin still existed, not because it was perfect, but because it had one property the traditional system did not. It did not depend on a central authority to stay alive. Crypto Explained ends. Part 2. With a cold truth. If you want to understand Bitcoin, do not only stare at the peaks. Look at the times it was pushed to the bottom and still climbed back. The next part is when Bitcoin moves from a survival experiment to a global phenomenon, and that is also when the biggest controversies begin to explode. If the previous stretch was when Bitcoin learned how to survive the real world's hard hits, then the next stretch is when Bitcoin steps onto the global stage and forces the entire world to react. This is the moment Bitcoin stops being a game for a small group. People argue about it on television, debate it in boardrooms, and governments start treating it as a topic they can no longer avoid. Crypto Explained wants you to see one thing clearly. When Bitcoin becomes big enough, the issue is no longer just technology. The issue is power. Who gets to control money? Who gets to set the rules? And who will be forced to change their financial habits, whether they like it or not? Crypto Explained is not telling a fairy tale here. Crypto Explained is describing what happens when an idea grows large enough to challenge the old system. As Bitcoin grows, it pulls a wave of newcomers in behind it. Some arrive because they believe in financial freedom, some arrive for profits, and some arrive because they are terrified of missing out. During major boom periods, the atmosphere feels like the whole world suddenly discovered something they ignored for too long. Success stories spread everywhere, and at the same time, painful crashes spread everywhere. Crypto Explained does not dress this up. Crypto Explained keeps it real. Bitcoin always has phases that make people drunk on optimism and phases that make people sober again. The strange part is that after each cycle, Bitcoin often comes back bigger, the community comes back tougher, and the influence spreads further. But as Bitcoin grows up, it hits a hard question it cannot dodge. How does it scale? The Bitcoin network has limits on how many transactions it can process over a period of time. When users surge, fees rise, waiting times rise, and frustration rises with them. This is where the biggest conflict begins. Not a fight about price, but a fight about the future path. One group argues for increasing capacity in one way. Another group argues for optimizing in a different way. Crypto Explained emphasizes that this was not childish internet drama. This was a philosophical fight about what Bitcoin should prioritize: decentralization, security, or speed. And more importantly, who gets to decide those priorities in a system that has no boss? Crypto Explained is telling you this because this conflict shaped everything that followed. The conflict escalated until the community split deeply. And then it happened, a split. One branch broke away on its own path, creating a different version with the promise of faster processing, cheaper fees, and easier everyday use. For newcomers, this was shocking because they assumed Bitcoin was one unified thing, one coin with one destiny. But this is the nature of an open system. There is no final signature. There is no closed-door meeting where one decision forces the whole world to obey. When disagreement becomes big enough, each side walks its own road, and the market and users decide what survives long-term. From the outside, it looks like chaos. From the perspective of decentralization, it is also a form of self-correction. Painful, but real. Crypto Explained wants you to understand that this is what decentralization looks like when it is tested under pressure. While the arguments exploded, technical solutions moved forward quietly. Upgrades arrived that optimized data, reduced pressure on the network, and opened the door for technology layers. Built on top, many people only saw drama, factions, and shouting. Builders saw progress, and that quiet progress is what shapes the long-term future. Bitcoin does not change like a company shipping a new version every week. Bitcoin changes slowly, and that is why every change is tense, heavily scrutinized, and fiercely debated. But the trade-off is that once a change is accepted, it is often durable, tested, and hard to reverse. Slow, difficult, stressful, but strong. That is the price of trust. Crypto Explained points this out because the slow pace is not a bug. It is part of why Bitcoin keeps surviving. Then the market returned to a cycle everyone remembers. A boom, and then a collapse. After hot rallies, excitement often pushes prices too far, and when the bubble pops, the pain is real. But crashes do not kill Bitcoin. What usually dies is illusion. The illusion that buying automatically means winning. The illusion that the market only goes one direction. The illusion that risk does not exist. After every crash, people leave. But the people who stay learn new lessons. And when they learn, the ecosystem matures, from security habits to risk management to how Bitcoin is explained to the outside world in a more realistic way. Crypto Explained says it plainly. the market hurts, but the network keeps running. The most important shift in this stretch is when Bitcoin begins to be treated like a macro asset. Not just something to trade for fun, but something to store value, hedge risk, and diversify holdings. Some institutions begin serious research. Some companies build Bitcoin into strategy, and investment funds begin to take it seriously. For many people, this is the moment Bitcoin steps out of internet culture and into traditional finance. But this is not Bitcoin surrendering. This is Bitcoin spreading. An idea can start on the edges of society, but if it proves it can survive, it moves toward the center, whether people love it or hate it. Crypto Explained highlights this because adoption does not always look like celebration. Sometimes adoption looks like the old world slowly admitting it has to pay attention. At the same time, reactions from governments and central banks become more visible. Some places tighten rules. Some places ban. Some places open the door to regulation. Some places test legal frameworks. News cycles swing hard. Strict today, softer tomorrow, investigation the next day, and constant headlines after that. Newcomers feel confused, but this is a sign of real impact. If Bitcoin did not matter, nobody would spend the energy debating it. When you see intense arguments, it means the game is large enough to touch interests and power. And Bitcoin, simply by existing and continuing to run, is forcing old systems to respond. Crypto Explained wants you to notice that this reaction is part of the story, because it shows Bitcoin is no longer invisible. Then come the milestone events that keep the long-term narrative alive, like the later halvings. Each time the reward drops, the scarcity story returns, and the market enters a new phase of pricing and positioning. There is no need to worship halving, but it cannot be ignored either. It is a mechanism that separates Bitcoin from traditional money at the level of rules. Bitcoin is programmed not to please anyone. It does not care about elections. It does not care about crisis headlines. It does not care about crowd emotions. It runs on schedule. And that creates a strange kind of trust. Trust in fixed rules instead of trust in human promises. Crypto Explained repeats this because it is the core difference that keeps pulling people back into the Bitcoin story. As Bitcoin becomes global, a contradiction appears. Bitcoin was born to reduce the need for middlemen, but mainstream users want convenience. And convenience often comes with middlemen. Big exchanges, custody services, trading apps, financial products, and packaged exposure. User maturity is learning that you can access Bitcoin in many ways, but you must understand the risk of each way. The Bitcoin network can remain secure while businesses around it collapse. The technology can be strong while humans are greedy. History has shown that the biggest shocks often come from people and weak management systems, not from the blocks and the code. Crypto Explained says this because many losses happen above the network, not inside the network. At a certain point, Bitcoin carries two images at the same time. One side calls it digital gold, a shelter in unstable times. The other side calls it a bubble, speculation, and a dangerous game. Both images exist because Bitcoin is still a new phenomenon, and society is still deciding what it is. You are not forced to pick a side, but you do need to see one fact. Bitcoin keeps running no matter what people call it. And when something is both loved and hated, both doubted and accepted, that is often a sign of a major transition. The old rules start to shake, and new rules start being tested in public. Crypto Explained brings this up because Bitcoin's real story is not just price action. It is a slow shift in how people think about money. So what does this stretch conclude? Bitcoin moved from a small idea after a crisis, through years of bad labels, betrayals by exchanges, and brutal market blows, and still stood back up. Then it became a global topic with controversies, splits, and growing recognition from the mainstream. The Bitcoin journey is not a straight line. It is a chain of constant trials, where every fall filters what is real from what is fake. If you have followed this far, you already know Bitcoin is not only about price, it is a story about trust, power, and a system with no off switch. Crypto Explained. ends with one simple request. If you want me to keep telling the stories of the next cryptocurrencies in this series, subscribe to Cryptocurrency Academy, hit like, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next Crypto Explained episodes. Crypto Explained will keep going, and the next stories get even wilder.